So guess what turned up in the post the other day? A new flange and seal with a new nut, which is great. But observe, it's not quite round. I think we're going to have problems with fitting that. But in this video we're just going to talk about shims, because a lot of people are put off by doing diffs about the shims and how you calculate them, because as I said to you the other day, the shim pack we calculated here is for the whole range of this plus 5 of an inch. Now we don't know yet which shims are going to go in which side, and that's what we're going to try and calculate this morning. I don't know if it's going to be in this video or not, but the rule of thumb is, if you take the old bearings off and they're a Timken bearing and they're a bit worn, replace them with a Timken bearing, the same type, everything's exactly the same, and you should be able to put the same shims back in. But don't mix them up. On here, Land Rover's provided some little brackets here so you can put a tie wrap through them and keep your shims, you know, whichever ones they were, tie wrap them onto here so you can't get them mixed up. So that goes onto there. I know they didn't really put that bracket on there, but it's really handy. Now, if you bugger up the shims by taking them off, all is not lost. The shims only came in 20s, 10s, 5s and 3s. From that combination you could make up just about everything. So if your shims are damaged like this, if you've been a bit brutal and you've caught the shim under a puller, well, or here for example, this is a bad example, this is an example I kept. You can see where the puller's grabbed under the shim instead of grabbing all the way around and pulling it off evenly like I showed you in the last video. If your shim is damaged, simply clean it as much as you can with some very fine wet and dry, maybe 1000 grit or 800 grit wet and dry. You don't want to take it thinner, but you just want to clean any dirt, debris, rust or whatever. Keep them together, and with a vernier or a micrometer, go around it in different places and get an average thickness. Alright? Once you've got that average, you can actually recalculate your shims again, and you should be okay. Should. Now the biggest boogaloo of them all, so that's doing this one. That's easy. The biggest boogaloo is this, the Pinion. Because the Land Rover workshop manual is extremely vague, as you probably found out. Manuals always seem to be written by people who know these things inside out, but they don't sort of cater for the layman like ourselves. So going off the manual here, it states here on the top of the Pinion there will be some part numbers on the top, and also a number that says, on this instance here it's got +3. Alright? And it said it could be +3 or -3. Why is that? Because at the factory these pieces, this crown wheel and this pinion, are ground together, rather like grinding your valves in. This is why when you must match them together, like we said in the last video, with the same part number. The part number, well, not the part number, but an identity number will be the same on the crown wheel as it is on the pinion. You mustn't mix and match different crown wheels and pinions. It's really, really important. Alright, so once you've established you've got a matching pair, you look at the top of here and there'll be a number on it. Now you can't really see it, but it's done with a, like, what do they call it, like a vibrating pen or something like that. It etches into the top. And this one here states 4. But in the manual it states it should be plus or minus. If it hasn't got a number, that's it. It's nominal. You know, that's its setting. So I don't know with this one whether it's +4 or -4. I assume, and you know what assumption is, it's the mother of all F-ups, that 4 is plus 4. I don't know. So how do we test it? How do we verify if that is the right one? Now, as I said to you before, I'm not going to do it on this one because I already set this up last August. So I'm pretty sure that that's the right one. I'm just looking round here for my height gauge. Ah, here we go. Now, to set it up, according to the book of words, you need one of these. See this here? This is a height gauge. Now on the older workshop manual, the height gauge was just a little round block, but it doesn't tell you what it should be. Well, I'm going to tell you. A couple of things I do for you. It's 39.93 millimeters. Exactly. It's over 1.5 inches, sort of. I don't know where they get the millimeter number from. I don't know how they do that. But JP made me this little block many years ago, and I'll explain it for you. This is the Salisbury axle. This is a 10 spline axle for the smaller axles at the front, or a 90 at the back, and this is for a 24 spline. They are different, but this will set up the pinion height. Now, what it says is this: you need to zero your block here on with the gauge. So you put your gauge on the block and zero it. It must be on a level surface. We've done this before on other videos. Here it is again. All right, that's the picture of it. Look, that you zero it, and then you put the block. You put your gauge, sort of like that type of like that type of thing, on your axle, and from that, there's a picture of it there. Look. All right. So once you've set your zero, set it onto the axle and measure both sides. You might have a discrepancy between the two. So what you do is you measure this side, turn it round, measure that side. Add them up, divide it by 2. That's your average. It's a bit vague, isn't it? From there, and this is the important thing, because a lot of us see... Where is it now? I've lost my bloody page now. Oh, yeah. Ah, yeah, you see, this is the second page. It doesn't say on the first page. Before adding shim thicknesses, check the pinion face marking to see if it has a plus figure, and subtract that from the thickness of the shims obtained in the previous instruction. So if it's plus, you take it down. If it's minus, you take it up. So that means that this has got to go either up or down. Now, it does get into a bit of a grey area, I must admit. And this is why, when we've set it up and we think we're right, this is why we put markings on the teeth and spin this over without the crush sleeving. We'll set the pinion so it doesn't, not loose, and then we'll look at the markings and we'll see if that pinion needs to go in or out. Because if there's backlash, if you got your backlash right, it's really down to your pinion that puts it in and out of it, because we want a nice pattern right in the middle. All right, so this is why we're only setting it up on the dummy bearings at the beginning. The dummy bearings, go to my web shop, there's a free download there. You can make them yourself, or you get your machine shop to make them up, but you've got to hone them out so they'll slip over the shafts of this carrier. And that's what it wants to feel like. You see what I mean? Like this, look. Now, as I said yesterday on the video, or the other day in the video, when you've got your dummy bearings in, let's do a zoom, you can see them here. See there's the dummy bearing. See how it's sticking out past the cap here. There's the cap. See how it's sticking out past. This is why, oops, I never get that right. Don't know my left from my right. This is why before we tighten it down, we push it across with a bar and then nip it down, do the other side. Because if you've got that bearing, that dummy bearing, or even if you're going to use some used bearings or something like that, if it's stuck halfway, you're going to get the wrong setting. Those bearings must go to the outside. And after that, easy peasy. So we worked out it was 94 thou plus 5, 99 thou, and that is our shim pack. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go, you know, like certain ones. We need to put the pinion in so that the pinion here will mesh and get the correct backlash, and that's what we're going to try and do today. We're going to try and establish the backlash first, and then we're going to just check it whilst our dummy bearings are in and stuff like this, without putting the crush sleeve in, what the markings are. If we're happy with the markings, we'll be home and dry. Now here's a little problem. Because this differential has a 5 thou preload on the bearings, that the preload's going like this, then it's going to be tight to get the differential back in without buggering up the shims. This is why a spreader is really sort of handy to have. What you're going to do is stretch this casing ever so slightly, so it's, in effect, it's on a taper. Don't do it too much, you can stretch the casing out with all recognition. But you want it just a little way apart so you can drop the differential in, tap it home with a hammer, and that's it. Once we've established the backlash, which we'll do later, probably on another video because I'm rambling on too much here, and then you'll be home and dry. Alright? Now, let's go back to saying that, Mike, I've changed the bearings, I've changed the crown wheel, I've changed the diff. You've got to start from scratch. Alright? This is why when I put this differential in here, it's one of those Detroit lockers or something like that. We've got the original crown wheel and pinion, but our dimensions may have changed ever so slightly because this is not the original. You're starting to get a picture now. So we have to start from scratch and recalculate everything according to this. Not according to the gears, according to this. It's confusing, isn't it? Now, somebody else asked me, am I going to take this differential apart? Is it working? How do I know? I don't know. It's customer supplied. I assume that it's okay. It looks nice. But this has got some big F-off springs in here. And don't take them apart without putting a big centre bolt in so you can alleviate the tension on the spring and put it back together again with the bolts here. Alright. Now, somebody mentioned could be burnt out because there's like a clutch in here. Clutch could be burnt out. How would I know? I don't know. I have no idea. For the simple reason that in order to test the operation of this, it needs to be on the vehicle with the axle shafts in, with the wheel on, 33 diameter wheel with an operative at both ends to turn the wheel like one opposite the other or in a certain progression to make sure it's working. It's really complicated, and I have only got here an axle case and a diff and a pinion. That's it. I haven't got anything else. No wheels, no tyres, no shafts, no brakes, no stubs. I've got nothing. So I'm assuming that this has come off a good vehicle. I can't be responsible for it really because I don't know how to test it. I've never seen one before. So be careful when you're doing upgrades and things like this or buying things second hand. You just never know quite what they're like. But looking at the general condition of it, it doesn't seem too bad. But there is some big springs in there, so just be careful. So what we're going to do today, we're going to put the pinion in, and now we're going to see if the height is right, or the price is right, or whatever. Alright, so that's been a bit of a ramble. We'll come back in another video when this pinion is in.